Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Joey Osborne Show. I'm your host, Joey Osborne, and I know it's been a long time, but finally back after a whole bunch of stuff, a lot of schoolwork, finally getting done with all that. But, back to the NFL playoffs are finally upon us, and it's time to figure out who's going to win the Super Bowl this year. A lot of great teams this year. Obviously the Lions, they've been into hell and back and still killing teams, especially last night. We saw against the Vikings. You got the Chiefs being the Chiefs again. A lot of great, obviously Ravens and Bills still the same. A lot of great teams definitely competing for what's to be a very exciting NFL playoffs this year. So let's get right into it here with my predictions, and let's start off with tomorrow's games. Of course, there's two of them. You have the Texans playing the Chargers in Houston at 4, and then you got the Steelers playing the Ravens in a big AFC North showdown later that night at 8 o'clock. So let's start off here with the Texans and Chargers game. And these are two very interesting teams. I think they kind of did not play out exactly the way people thought they would this season. I think when you look at the Texans, people thought, I think everyone, thought they were going to win the AFC South. That was a given, but I think there was a lot of people thinking that this team would do a lot better than it did. Obviously, CJ Stroud, he had the sophomore slump, all right. Having a very just like not what you expected for him in the season. Losing Stephon Diggs of injury was bad. Tanked out in and out of the lineup, and I think he's still out from the. I think I'm correct that he's still out. But they've had some nice things too. Obviously, the defense has looked good, but overall for the Texans, I think this year they had a lot higher hopes, and I think they expected more from the team, and really, it has not played out to that point. Well, obviously, if you talk here, of course, the opposite you could say here with the Chargers, I think they have definitely exceeded expectations. Of course, hiring Harbaugh, and it's been a big help. You used to see the improvement on defense, on offense. It's not your Chargers. I'll tell you that. But this Chargers team is a lot better than what it was, and it's truly got a bright future. Am I expecting them to win the Super Bowl this year? No, of course not. I don't think they're expecting that, but I think they're gonna make a decent run, and they're building up for future years. Obviously, the wide receiving core is definitely kind of very lacking for Herbert, but Herbert, he's been able to make do with it. Ladd McConkey has definitely came out as the wide receiver 1, and he has been spectacular in his rookie season. And overall, they've had a lot of great things. Joe Alt's been good when he's been playing. The offensive line has been very good, and I think, when you look at these two teams, they're kind of the opposites of what we thought they were going to be. I think Texans, we thought, were going to be kind of not running the AFC, but they would be one of the top premier teams in the AFC. It hasn't played out that way for them, just due to injuries and just players not playing the way they expected. And Chargers, who, is like, they may be decent, but I don't know if they're going to be a playoff team or anything, Then a playoff team. I think in this game, it's going to be, I think a decent offensive showdown. I think the Chargers have the upper hand just with they're a lot more healthier, and I just think right now the Chargers, out of the two, are the better team, especially with the defense. I think the Chargers, they're just the better coach team. And that's not a slight at the Texans. I think they have a spectacular coach in DeMeco Murray down there, but just the way the season's gone, I just don't think this is the year they're really ready to take that next step yet. I think this is just another year, You're going to become a contender. You just got to try to figure it out here at this point, and they're just figuring out. I think the Texans will do decent, but in this game, I just think the Chargers, out of the two, are the better team and are going to pull out a win in this one here. Now, moving on here to Ravens-Steelers, and this is definitely, obviously, the AFC North showdown. It's always fun when these two teams come together. And this one, we'll see how this one goes. I think, the Ravens and Steelers, they have had definitely an interesting year, especially Steelers. They went up big there. Looked like they were going to easily win the AFC North, and then they lose the next 4. So it's just a lot of things. The Ravens are coming in hot. Steelers coming in pretty much complete turmoil, and it's just going to be an interesting game. Obviously, Ravens are without Zay Flowers, so that obviously changes the offensive side of things for the Ravens there, but, they still have Mark Andrews. Isaiah Likely has been very decent this year. A lot of great plays whenever they've needed him. Rashad Bateman, he's been a quality wide receiver, not the kind of guy that was worth the first-round pick that he was drafted at, but, very reliable guy when they've needed to have him. He's been reliable. And then you got Derrick Henry up in the middle there. And there's really no stopping King Henry. And I think the Steelers learned that the hard way last time they played him. in Baltimore. So it's going to be interesting, especially for the Steelers. They have lost four straight. George Pickens has either been injured or has not played well at all, and he's the only wide receiver they have, so that hasn't helped. The offensive line has played a lot more like it probably should have. Not very well. It's definitely was overachieving earlier in the season, I thought, and it's started to play like what you expect it to play more like with the talent on that team. Russell Wilson just hasn't been seeing the ball as well, as he had in the first couple weeks, and on the defense too. They've had a lot of bending, and they've definitely broke at times, but they've also had great plays from that defense. That defense still is making plays, even in this losing streak. They have still made plays, and they have given this team chances to win some of these games. Obviously, I think the last game, when they played the Bengals, there were multiple times where the defense gave them a chance to win, and they couldn't connect on that. And I think even in that Ravens-Steelers game from a couple weeks ago that they lost to the Ravens, that defense made plays that the offense should have been able to, take advantage of. And I'm not saying they win that game, but I think it definitely helps them out. But in this spot here, it seems like the Steelers are a lost team at this point. They just don't seem to have, they just don't have much confidence right now. It doesn't seem like to me, Obviously, it's a first start, 0-0, Maybe they rebound, maybe they don't. Honestly, I think Baltimore's the better team. I think there's just a better team, and I think they're going to pull out a win. Now, will this be a blowout? I don't think this will be a blowout just because Steelers-Ravens is never a blowout. It's always going to be dirty close, and it's going to be a defensive game, most likely. Because I definitely do not expect the Steelers' offense to do insanely much of anything, and honestly, knowing how Steelers-Ravens plays out, I would, and especially for Isaiah Flowers, I expect the same thing from the Ravens. It's just going to be whatever team lasts longer was the one that's going to win. And I think the Ravens, with Derrick Henry, I think that's the difference maker for them in this game. And I think that's going to help them out big time. But then again, too, the Steelers, if they got Najee Harris and Jalen Warren going, then they should be able to move the ball well as well. So I think it just depends, who can get it going first and who can survive the longest. And I think, honestly, in my opinion, it's the Ravens. I think they can. Which stinks me because I'm a Steelers fan, but, I just don't think the Steelers have as much left in the tank as you would hope in this spot. It just seems like they are kind of lacking confidence by this point, which is not a good thing to see. And, they just have not played well these last 4 games, and I have a tough time seeing them going into Baltimore and beating Baltimore this year. But now moving on to our next game here, we have the 2-seed Bills against the number 7 seed, and honestly, this has been a surprise this whole year, the Broncos of Bo Nix. Obviously, he has been a surprise. I think a lot of people didn't think he was going to be a franchise quarterback. And obviously, he's not a franchise yet, but he's done a great job so far as the starter. And honestly, I would say, too, I did not think Bo Nix was going to do this at all. I kind of thought he was a bad pick, but he has definitely proven a lot of people wrong, and the Broncos have been a very decent, for what they have in their roster, they have been very good. I thought they had not a very good roster, only Courtland Sutton at wide receiver. There's a lot of holes. I think a lot of us viewed this team as a rebuilding team. They'll probably have a top 10 pick, again, just they're working to rebuild, especially after getting rid of Russell Wilson. It seemed like, and training Jerry Jeudy, it just seemed like they're probably trying to do more of a rebuild once again here, just because the first rebuild didn't work. You now have Sean Payne, a proven head coach, so it seems a lot more likely you can get rebuild this time, and get it going. But, also losing Justin Simmons, their safety as well. It's they lost a lot in the offseason, but this team, there's a lot of young players. Some players is just, need a chance to shine, and the Broncos gave it to them, and then they shined, and I just think the Broncos, it's a definite testament to a lot of hard work and skill for where they got. And I think this year, if you're a Broncos fan, even though you gotta play the Bills, and I don't think the Broncos are winning this, just because they're a young team, and that Bills team this year, especially if Josh Allen's been such a juggernaut, there's been multiple games where he's single-handedly won the game for them in blowouts, it's just, I think the Bills are a better team, but when you're the Broncos, I think they'll keep this somewhat competitive. I don't think they'll win. But I think for the Broncos, it's more just getting this playoff experience and building up for future years. So I'm going to go for the Bills in this one because I just think they're the more talented team. Because the Broncos, in my opinion, they have more of a rebuilding roster. They just really performed well. So they're in a good spot for the future. I will say this for the Broncos. they have a good future ahead of them if Bo Nix continues to develop the way he does and the rest of their young pieces do. But I just think the Bills are the better team here, so I'm going to take the Bills in this one. Moving on here now to the Eagles versus the Packers, the 2 and the 7 seed, and this is definitely going to be a fun one to watch. So obviously, this was the Week 1 matchup in Brazil. It had a lot of attention due to, a lot of stuff that was going on around there, but it's an interesting team. Jalen Hurts finally out concussion protocol today, so obviously that should be a big help for them. Getting him back, I think Tanner McKee was in line to start there for the game, because I think Pickett had injured ribs there, so he wasn't able to play. So it's their third string in line, so you get your fourth string back, so that helps out big time. But honestly, with this team, if you've watched this team, it's all been Saquon Barkley. The big offseason acquisition that the Eagles had, honestly, they just feed him the ball, and teams just can't stop him. This season has been insane, honestly, for him. I don't think I've seen a running back like him play the way he has this year, and it's just been a fun team to watch. And when you look at the Packers here, too, I think this is, they're still a good team. They are still a very quality team. I think all the teams in the NFC are quality teams in the playoffs this year. And they've had a couple setbacks. Jordan Love has had a couple iffy games, but he's had some good ones, and he was in and out of injury as well. So, they've had some inconsistencies there with him, but overall, he's still been good. I think he's definitely built off what he did last year. Obviously, there's been some disappointments with their wide receivers. Watson just hasn't really done as well as they would like, and then he tore his ACL last week, so he's now out. Jaden Reed, he's done decent, but, just never really built off. But I think overall, the Packers, they're in a good spot. I think this is a competitive game. I think this is one that I think the Eagles are slightly the better team, and I think they're going to pull out the win. But I think the Packers, just as well, could pull off an upset here in this spot. But I think it should be a good game, tough game, but I think the Eagles will. I think Saquon Barkley's just the difference. They're kind of like the Ravens of Henry, Saquon's the difference, and I think that's what's going to get him the win there for the Eagles. Moving on to the next game here, we have the Buccaneers and the Commandos, and once again, this is an interesting matchup. Buccaneers, they've won the NFC South a lot now. They've been a quality playoff team. They've won playoff games. Baker Mayfield has been a definite great successor to Brady there after Brady retired. He's done a spectacular job. I think overall, the Buccaneers are a good team, but they're a team that has a lot of injuries. And I think that's something that definitely shows. They don't have Chris Godwin, so that's the number 2 wide receiver down. And while they've had guys to fill in for it, it's definitely still been a big hit for them. Mike Evans, obviously, he did get 1,000 this year, but he's getting up there, and the age is finally starting to show on Mike Evans. But, the Buccaneers are still a good quality team, and I think they definitely have a lot to compete for in this spot. But, when you look on the other side here with the Washington Commandos, this was a team I don't think anyone saw this coming. Obviously, first-year head coach Dan Quinn has done a spectacular job with this group. But obviously, when you talk about the Commandos, it has to be the Rookie of the Year favorite, Jaden Daniels, who I thought, obviously, come draft time was going to be the best quarterback in this class. And he has proven it for sure. He has been spectacular, just making plays all around. And this Commandos team, they finally got Terry McLaurin working. They got him a quarterback, and he has been doing great. That offense overall has been doing great. Obviously, it's just in the building phases, so there's going to be more pieces added to that. And I think in future years, like this year, it's kind of like when I talked about the Chargers in Texas with the Commanders, This is the year they're going to start building, and once they build, they're going to get better as, when it goes, the more seasons it goes on. But honestly, I think their team overall, they have a good defense, the offensive line's decent. They have a spectacular quarterback in Jaden Daniels. They have a great weapon in wide receiver in Terry McLaurin. And, I think this is an upset. I'm going to take the Commandos on this one over the Buccaneers. I just think the Buccaneers are just too injured right now. And I kind of think Jaden Daniels and the Commandos is just the better team, honestly. I really think that, they're just a better team. So I'm going to take the Commandos on that one. Moving on here to the next game, here we have the Rams and Vikings. Obviously, that's been overshadowed a lot by the wildfires out there, so they've moved the game to Arizona. But this would be a good one. I think both the Vikings and Rams have had great seasons. Obviously, Rams had to overcome a lot of injuries there at the end, but they've played some great football in this last month, and they looked a lot like they did last year, and they've had a lot of great young pieces on their defense show up in the wake of Aaron Donald's retirement. Obviously, their rookie Veos has looked great. Young is no guy who has looked great for them at this point. So they have a young defense that's done very well this year, in my opinion. Obviously, but they have a task ahead of them when it comes to that Vikings offense, because they got a quarterback at Sam Darnold there who has been spectacular this year, coming in for J.J. McCarthy, who got hurt in the preseason. And they have looked spectacular on offense. And then when you look at the Vikings defensively, too, they've had a top 5 defense, and they don't really have guys that are, top 5 defenders in the league. They don't have, a true, all-pro or anything like that in their defense. It's just great players and a good scheme. And, the Vikings, they put pressure on teams, and it works. And they have a great defense, a great offense. And as much as I like the Rams here, and I think they're in a good spot, I'm going to take the Vikings here in this one. I just think the Vikings, they're in a good spot to win. Sam Darnold has been spectacular this year, and there's not been many games where he's made mistakes. The only one time I've really seen him make mistakes against the Lions last week, but other than that, he has been pretty much lights out for him. And I think, the Vikings, when they get to this offseason, and you talk, do you keep McCarthy or do you keep Darnold and pay Darnold? It's a tough situation to try to figure out, though. But it's a good situation, too. And if you have 2 quarterbacks you believe in, and they both seem to be quality, at least the one definitely is quality, the other one they view as quality, we don't know yet, we'll find out. But, they're in this spot, and I think the Vikings, they're a great team, and I think they're going to get a win. So I'm taking the Vikings in this one. So moving on now here to the defending champ, the Kansas City Chiefs. Now they get to play the Chargers here in this one, and I think this is a very close game if this happens. They both times they play in the regular season, very close games. I would say, honestly, I'm going to take the Chiefs here just because I just think the Chargers are not ready there yet. They don't have enough weapons. They'll obviously be getting that in the offseason, I bet. And then I think next year, when they're really a threat to the Chiefs. But I think they're not there just yet, but they're very close to being a threat there. And I would say this is going to be a very close competitive game. I'm just going to take the Chiefs in this because I think the Chiefs, they have a good shot at winning this one here. Now, moving on here to the Bills and Ravens. This is going to be a good one. Obviously, I don't think they messed up this year, but 2 juggernaut teams, The Ravens of Henry have been spectacular offensively, and they've had a lot of good weapons. And I would say by this point, Zay Flowers also plays back for them for this week against the Bills, So I think their offense is ready to go. Obviously, Buffalo's is ready to go, and they've done spectacular this year. I think, obviously, this is a game that go either way, but I think it's going to be something decided by the difference at quarterback. And honestly, I think at the end of the day, I think the Bills are better with Lamar Jackson. Josh Allen, my mistake, sorry about that. If Josh Allen, then Lamar Jackson, is with the Ravens. I think Josh Allen, he's just the difference maker there. He really is. And I think that's going to give the Bills the win over the Ravens in that spot. Moving on here to the NFC side, we got Lions and Commanders. This is going to be a good one if it happens, but I'm going to take the Lions in this one. That Lions team is just unstoppable. It seems like you can intro every single player on that team, and they still perform well. And it's just a testament to the rebuild that the Lions have done, Dan Campbell's coaching, and this team clearly after last year in the NFC Championship game is on a mission. And it's clear as day, that they want to win this bad, and they have played so well so far. And I think as good as Jane Daniels is, I just don't think they can beat the Lions. So I'm going to take the Lions in this one here. Moving on here to Eagles-Vikings. Another one I think is going to be a very good game. A lot of good teams here, and I think the Vikings, they could easily make a run at the conference championship. Yeah, same with the Eagles. They've had a lot of great offseason acquisitions come to fruition and been spectacular for them in this spot. And honestly, it's just when it comes to this game, who's going to stop the run is the question. Can the Eagles, run with the Vikings in that pass rush? Can they get through with Saquon? And then if the Vikings too, it's like, can you get through that Philly defense? And I think it's going to depend. If the Minnesota can stop the run, then they should be able to win this game. If they can't, then the Eagles are going to win this game. And, watching Saquon this year, I just don't think that they can stop Saquon. And I'm going to take the Eagles in this one here. So, guys, I'm a little unconventional of 1 and 2s for both sides in the conference championships. But, and I think this could play out either way. But, these are just 2 very good teams in very good spots here. Now, moving on to the AFC Championship game, we got the Chiefs and Bills. And this is a matchup we did see in the regular season, and it was a complete blowout for the Bills against the Chiefs in this spot. And I'm be honest with you, this Kansas City team, it's just not as good as the years past. They've looked better toward the end here, being up in Pittsburgh, but then I think that's just more Pittsburgh's not as good as everyone thought than anything else. And honestly, I just think Buffalo's the better team this year. And as much as crazy it is to say, I'm going against the Chiefs because, you shouldn't shouldn't go against the Chiefs because they always seem to pull out, but I just don't think they can beat Buffalo this year. It's just, if you looked at when they played in the regular season, it was just two completely different teams play level-wise, and it really showed it. So I'm going to take the Bills in this one here. Moving on to the NFC Championship game, we have the Lions and Eagles. This is going to be a good one. I think Saquon's going to be able to run wild on the Lions here. So that's going to be a big trouble for them. But then again, with the Eagles' defense, you got to stop Gibbs and Montgomery in the running game for the Lions. And that's going to cause a lot of problems because Montgomery's come back. And obviously, in the absence of Montgomery, you've had Gibbs look spectacular, just line it up. And you still got to worry about Jameson Williams and Amon St. Brown in the as wide receivers there. So I think if you're the Lions, I think they're in a good spot. And you're playing in Detroit, I'm going to say the Lions are winning this. But it's going to be a very close game up to the wire there. But I think it's going to be a last-second miracle for the Lions on, I think it's going to be like a last-second drive. They're going to get down the field and score in that game. But I'm going to say the Lions take it on the Eagles in that one there. Then moving on here to the Super Bowl, we have the Lions and Bills. This should be a good one. Both very good teams, great quarterbacks, great players around them, good defenses. But I'm going to take the Lions in this one. This team just seems to be the team of destiny this year. You throw how many injuries, losing A. Hutch, and honestly, they've lost McNeil. They've lost like nearly everyone, honestly, other than Brian Branch, and they're still winning games, and they're playing great football. And I think at this point here, this is a tough team to beat. So I'm going to take the Lions to win the Super Bowl here on this one over the Bills, but it's going to be a close game, and I think obviously it's something that goes either way. I could easily see the Bills winning as well, but I'm going to take the Lions in this one here. And that's going to do it here for this video. If you enjoyed the video, please comment, like, and subscribe, and tune in for more. Thank you guys for watching, and have a great day.